Good evening, my friends. Tonight I am going to tell you something that most people spend their entire lives circling around without ever landing on. Not drifting toward, not almost understanding, landing on, with full weight, with complete clarity, with the kind of knowing that does not shake when the world around you shakes. The law of attraction is real, not as a concept you find interesting, not as an idea you half believe on good days and quietly abandon on the bad ones. It is real the way gravity is real, the way mathematics is real, the way the rising of the sun is real. It does not ask for your belief before it operates. It does not pause while you make up your mind. It is working right now, in this moment in your life, producing with absolute precision the exact reflection of what you are holding inside you. The question is not whether it is working. The question is whether you are working it deliberately or accidentally. Most people are attracting accidentally. They are broadcasting a signal without knowing they are a broadcast tower. They are sending out requests without understanding they are sending anything at all. And then they stand in the middle of the life their unconscious assumptions have built and wonder why it looks the way it does. Why the same patterns keep returning. Why the same walls keep rising. Why the same ceiling appears every time they begin to rise toward something better. Tonight that changes. Not because I will give you a technique. Not because I will hand you a formula to memorize and perform. But because once you truly understand how this law operates, the formula becomes unnecessary. When you understand the principle, the practice follows as naturally as breathing. Here is the foundation on which everything else rests. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. Read that again. Not what you wish for, not what you ask for, not what you would prefer if the universe were taking your order. What you are. The signal you are broadcasting at the level of your deepest assumptions, your most habitual feelings, the inner conversation you have with yourself in the quiet moments when you are not performing for anyone, that signal is your point of attraction. And everything in your life has been drawn to that point with total accuracy. This is not a comfortable truth. It is not supposed to be comfortable. It is supposed to be clarifying. Because once you understand that you are the cause, you stop waiting for the world to change so that you can feel differently. You stop saying, when this happens, I will believe. When the money comes, I will feel abundant. When the relationship appears, I will feel loved. When the body changes, I will feel worthy. That is the reversal that keeps people locked. That is living as though the outer world is the cause and your inner world is the effect. The law of attraction teaches something that overturns every assumption most people carry about how life works. Your inner world is the cause. Your outer world is the effect. Always. Without exception. Without a single moment in which the reverse has ever been true. So the first thing you must do before any technique, before any visualization, before any affirmation is spoken, is to accept full creative responsibility for your life as it stands. Not as punishment, not in the spirit of self-blame, in the spirit of power. Because the person who created the current condition with their assumptions is the same person who can create a new condition with new assumptions. The same mechanism that built the cage can build the palace. And it is your mechanism. It belongs to you. It responds to you and to no one else. Now let me show you precisely how it works. Everything in the universe is energy. Every thought is energy. Every emotion is energy. And energy moves according to frequency. When two frequencies match, they are drawn together. This is not poetry. This is physics. Like attracts like at the level of vibration. And your dominant emotional state, the feeling tone you carry through most of your hours and days, is your vibration. It is the frequency you are broadcasting. And the universe, which is always listening, always responding, always arranging circumstances to match what it detects, responds to that frequency with the reliability of a law. When you feel abundant, when you carry within you the genuine emotional reality of having enough, of being enough, of living in a universe that is fundamentally supportive and generous, you broadcast that frequency. And abundance in all its forms, in the specific ways most suited to your path and your life, moves toward you, not because you have been rewarded, not because you have done enough spiritual homework, because like attracts like. Because the frequency of abundance calls more abundance the way. A tuning fork causes every identical tuning fork in the room to begin vibrating at the same pitch. And when you feel lack, when you carry within you the contracted, tight, worried feeling of not enough, of barely getting by, of a universe that is hostile and withholding, you broadcast that frequency. And circumstances that match that frequency are drawn to you with the same law, the same precision, the same total absence of judgment or preference. The law does not care which frequency you broadcast. It simply responds. It is a mirror, not a moral authority. This is where most people misunderstand what the law of attraction is asking of them. They believe it is asking them to be positive, to force cheerfulness, to paint a smile over genuine pain and call it manifestation. That is not what it is asking. Forced positivity is still rooted in the awareness of the unwanted. When you suppress what you feel without genuinely shifting it, the underlying feeling remains the broadcast. The universe reads not the performance but the signal beneath it. What the law is asking of you is something far more real than positive thinking. It is asking you to shift your identity, to genuinely, from the inside, begin to inhabit the felt reality of the version of yourself who already is what you desire to become. Not to pretend, to actually cross the threshold of consciousness from who you have been to who you are choosing to be. Let me give you the tool that makes this possible. It is the most important tool the law of attraction offers. It is called visualization, but that word has been so diluted, so reduced to the act of briefly picturing something and hoping it materializes, that I want to use a different word. Call it inner experience. Call it consciousness rehearsal. What you are doing when you do it correctly is not imagining something out there. You are experiencing something in here, in the body, in the nervous system, in the felt sense of reality. Here is how you do it. Find a quiet moment, the threshold of sleep being the most powerful. Relax the body fully. Let the external world fade, and then construct inside your mind not a picture you are looking at but a scene you are living inside. Make it specific. Make it sensory. If the desire is financial freedom, do not vaguely picture wealth. Sit inside a specific scene. The desk where you sit managing resources rather than struggling with them. The conversation you are having with someone you care about in which money is simply not a source of stress anymore. The feeling in your chest as you move through a day in which you know you are financially free. Let that feeling become real in the body. Not hoped for. Real. Do not exit that scene quickly. Stay in it. Learn its textures. Hear its sounds. Feel its emotional reality until it becomes not a fantasy but a familiar place. A place you know. A place that, when you close your eyes, feels more like home than the current outer circumstances do. That familiarity is the signal. That is when you know the inner shift is happening. Because familiarity means the subconscious mind has begun to accept this as normal. And what the subconscious accepts as normal, it works without ceasing to create in the outer world. The subconscious mind is the great builder. It never rests. It never questions the instructions it receives. It simply takes what has been repeatedly impressed upon it through feeling and works, beneath your waking awareness, through inspired thoughts, through sudden ideas, through the arrangement of circumstances and coincidences and meetings that seem accidental but are not, to manifest the physical equivalent of what it has been given. Your only job is the impression. The construction is the subconscious mind's domain. And it is a master builder. Here is something most people skip, and it is the very thing that creates the gap between those who practice the law of attraction faithfully and those who practice it faithfully and get results. Your inner conversation. What you say to yourself. not in the formal moments of deliberate visualization, but in the ordinary moments. The automatic, unexamined, habitual monologue that runs beneath your conscious thoughts all day long. Every word of that inner conversation is an instruction. Every phrase you use to describe yourself to yourself is a decree that the subconscious accepts and builds from. If the deliberate practice says, "I am abundant," but the inner conversation says, "I cannot afford this," why does nothing ever work for me? Same as always. Money is always a struggle. Then you have given the subconscious two contradictory instructions. And the one that is given with more frequency, with more emotional conviction, with more repetition across more hours of the day, will dominate. This is why discipline of the inner conversation is not optional, not as a spiritual exercise in self-improvement, as a fundamental requirement of deliberate attraction. You must learn to speak to yourself as someone who already possesses what they seek, not with desperation, not with the strained overbrightness of someone performing a belief they do not hold, with the calm, settled naturalness of someone who lives inside an established reality. You talk to yourself the way a wealthy person talks to themselves, not a person trying to become wealthy. You talk to yourself the way a loved person talks to themselves, not a person hoping love will arrive. The distinction is not subtle. The subconscious detects it precisely. Now let me address the thing that derails more people than any other single factor: doubt. Doubt feels like a reasonable response to the absence of evidence. When you have held a vision for 6 weeks and the outer world has not shifted, doubt presents itself as wisdom, as clear-eyed realism, as the mature, responsible recognition that perhaps you have been engaging in wishful thinking. And most people at this point either abandon the practice or, worse, redouble their effort with a kind of anxious, effortful urgency that is the opposite of the relaxed, certain faith that genuine manifestation requires. Here is what you must understand about doubt. It is not neutral. Doubt is not simply the absence of belief. It is the presence of a counterbelief. When you doubt that what you desire is coming, you are not in a state of uncertainty. You are in the active state of believing it is not coming. And the law of attraction responds to that belief with the same precision with which it responds to faith. Doubt manifests doubt's results. Not because you are being punished for your weakness, but because the law is impersonal, and doubt is an assumption like any other. So the question becomes not how do I eliminate doubt, but how do I respond to it when it rises? And the answer is not argument. Arguing with doubt using logic strengthens its hold because it keeps your attention on the unwanted. The response to doubt is the same as the response to any limiting state. You transcend it by moving into the state of the fulfilled desire. You feel your way out of doubt not by proving it wrong, but by choosing a different inner experience. Right now, in this moment, without waiting for outer evidence to make the choice easier. This is what faith actually means, not the religious performance of declaring belief while secretly uncertain. The practical, deliberate act of choosing to inhabit an inner state that has no outer confirmation yet, choosing to feel the reality of the fulfilled desire in the absence of physical proof. This is not self-deception. This is how every great thing was ever created. The architect feels the building before it stands. The composer hears the symphony before it is played. The person who transforms their life feels the transformed reality before the transformation is visible to anyone else. Feeling first is not a spiritual luxury. It is the mechanism of creation. Let me now speak about the role of action, because this is where the law of attraction has been most misrepresented. The law does not make you passive. It does not suggest that you sit quietly in a room feeling abundant and wait for money to fall through the ceiling. What it teaches about action is something more subtle and more powerful than either extreme. It teaches that inspired action, action that arises from within you naturally, as an impulse, an idea, a felt sense of now, is the only action that needs to be taken. And it teaches that when your inner state is genuinely aligned with your desire, inspired action becomes almost effortless. The right moves present themselves. The right conversations happen. The right doors open at the right time. The misaligned person works hard and struggles. They force, they push, they take massive action fueled by anxiety. And what they attract with that energy of anxious straining is more circumstances that require anxious straining. Because again, the signal beneath the action, the frequency of I am pushing against resistance, is what the universe is responding to. The aligned person acts when moved. They follow the impulse, the idea that arrives with a quiet sense of yes, the conversation that opens naturally, the door that swings without being forced. And they move through the world with a quality that others sometimes read as luck but is not luck at all. It is alignment. It is the natural, frictionless movement of someone whose inner state matches what they are moving toward. So do not misuse the law of attraction as an excuse for inaction, but also do not confuse frantic action with power. The power is in the state. The action that flows from a genuinely aligned state carries that alignment with it and produces results that action from misaligned states cannot produce no matter how much harder it tries. There is one more thing I want to address before we move to the most important practice you can build into your daily life. It is the matter of what you give your attention to throughout your day. The law of attraction operates on attention the way a fire operates on oxygen. Whatever you give your sustained attention to, you are feeding. Whatever you think about most, whatever you talk about most, whatever you return to again and again in your mind's eye grows larger in your experience. Not might grow, grows. This is the law. Most people give enormous attention to what they do not want. They analyze the problem in detail. They discuss the lack with their friends. They scroll through the evidence of what is wrong, what is missing, what is threatening. They rehearse worst-case scenarios with a specificity and emotional investment that amounts to creative visualization of the unwanted. And then they spend 10 minutes before sleep trying to visualize something positive and wonder why the positive is slow to arrive. Your dominant attention is your dominant creation. If you give 8 hours to the unwanted and 10 minutes to the desired, the ratio of your creation is not 10 minutes. This is why conscious stewardship of where your attention goes is not optional. You must become someone who, when the mind drifts toward the unwanted, gently, without drama, without self-criticism, redirects it. Not because you are burying your head in the sand, not because you are in denial of reality. Because you understand that what you dwell on, you draw toward you, and you have made a decision about what you wish to draw. This is the practice. This is what transforms the law of attraction from a concept you understand intellectually into a force you wield deliberately. Every morning before you engage with the world, before the phone, before the news, before the demands of the day reach you, spend 5 minutes in the inner experience of your fulfilled desire. Let it be real. Let it be felt. Let the emotions of that reality move through your body. You are setting the frequency for the day. Every evening before sleep, revisit it. Use those final moments of conscious awareness to impress upon the subconscious mind the image of the wish fulfilled. Let your last deliberate thought be the feeling of the life you are choosing. You are giving the great builder its instructions for the night. The subconscious does not sleep. It works while you do. And what you give it at the threshold of sleep is what it carries through the hours of rest, weaving the inner pattern that must eventually externalize. Throughout the day, monitor your inner conversation. When you catch it drifting into limitation, into the familiar narrative of lack or fear or unworthiness, redirect it, not with force, with the firm, calm authority of someone who has made a decision and does not need to revisit it every time a contrary thought arises. Say to yourself, without drama, that is the old story. Then speak the new one. The new one does not have to be loud or emphatic. It simply has to be consistent. Be patient with the lag. There is always a lag between the inner shift and the outer manifestation. This is not a flaw in the law. It is a feature of physical reality. Physical reality is dense. It takes time for the rearrangement of inner assumptions to fully externalize in a three-dimensional world. The seed does not become a tree in an afternoon, but the tree is certain from the moment the seed is planted in the right conditions. Your only work is to keep the conditions right, to maintain the inner state, to water the seed not with anxious watching but with consistent, faithful return to the feeling of the fulfilled desire. And when you see the first signs, the small coincidences, the unexpected conversations, the ideas that arrive from nowhere, the opportunities that seem almost too perfectly timed, do not dismiss them. Recognize them for what they are. The law working. The bridge of circumstances beginning to construct itself. The outer world beginning its shift toward the inner pattern you have been holding. Receive these signs not with the desperate excitement of someone who was not sure it was working, but with the quiet, settled satisfaction of someone who knew all along. Because that is who you are now. Not someone who is hopping the law of attraction is real. Not someone who is testing it provisionally to see if it delivers. Someone who understands how reality is constructed, who has chosen their inner state deliberately, who has impressed that state upon the subconscious mind through consistent feeling, who knows with the calm certainty of someone who understands a law that the outer world is in the process of rearranging itself accordingly. You are not at the mercy of your circumstances. You never were. The circumstances were always at the mercy of your consciousness. They were always responsive, always malleable, always ready to shift the moment the inner pattern shifted. The reason they seemed fixed was not because they were fixed. It was because the inner pattern that was generating them remained unchanged. Change the pattern and the circumstances must follow. Not might follow, must. The law is not selective. It is not reserved for people with a certain level of spiritual development or a certain threshold of positive thinking. It is the operating principle of all consciousness at all times in all lives. It was working in your life before you had a name for it. It will work after you have forgotten this conversation. It works not because you activate it, but because it is always active. Your only choice is whether to work it deliberately or accidentally. Choose deliberately. Choose tonight. Not after more preparation. Not when life feels more manageable. Now, in this moment, with whatever is in front of you, however far the current outer reality feels from what you desire. Close your eyes. Feel it real. Whatever it is, the specific life you are choosing, feel it as though it already is. Not the excited charge of something hoped for. The quiet, unremarkable, deeply familiar feeling of something that is simply and completely yours. That feeling is your signal. That feeling is your prayer, the one the universe answers not with judgment but with precision. That feeling is the seed of everything you are about to watch grow in the visible world. The law of attraction is not a belief system. It is a description of reality. And reality, once you understand how it is built, becomes something you build deliberately from the inside out, from this moment, from this breath, from the state you choose right now. You have always been the attractor. Now be a deliberate one. This is your life, and it is responding to you. It always has been.